I guess one of the biggest issues we see now is probably the poor quality in waterproofing preparation.
Mm.
A report I'd received just recently was a report that where they had waterproofing failure, but it wasn't identified until about 12 months to 18 months afterwards when mold actually started to appear on some of the linings within the dwellings. And then eventually they had some air quality testing done in the house and the occupants had to vacate much immediately. And
Hello, and welcome back to the Building Sociology Potty for 2026. Before we get into it, I would like to ask you to please press follow on your chosen podcast platform and leave a review if you're liking the content so far. And thank you so much for sticking with me throughout the year. I really appreciate having you, and I'm really glad to be back. I hope you had a really restful holiday and a safe and happy new year. We've got some great content coming up this year. I've already got some really cool guests lined up. Building science specialists, of course, a flooring specialist, building biologists, and a couple more big names as well. So it's already shaping up to be an excellent year. My first guest for 2026 is Jake Turner from JT Certification Services. So without further ado, here is our conversation. I hope you enjoy it, and thanks for being here. Hello and welcome to the Building Sociology Potty, where we talk about better buildings to live and breathe in. My name is Jess Kismet, and today we are joined by Jake Turner. Jake is a tradie turned building surveyor and the brand new founder and director of JT Certification Services in Mount Gambier, South Australia. With his industry experience and an understanding of building regulations, Jake brings a pretty rare mix of skills to the table and is genuinely passionate about lifting standards across the industry. Jake has also been a leader in the regional compliance space, having served as the president of the Limestone Coast Local Government Inspectorial Group. Let's get into talking about how we bridge that performance gap between regulation and real-world construction. Thanks for joining me, Jake.
thanks for having me, Jess. Thank you.
No,
Appreciate it.
no worries at all. So tell us a bit about your career history and how you got to where you are today, please, so the listener can get a bit of an idea of who you are.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the accolades that you've just sort of repeated them. It's got a lot to live up to now, but so yeah, I sort of come from a hands-on background in the construction industry. Initially, yeah, did my cabinet maker and joiner trade straight out of high school, and then eventually had some opportunities to transition into concreting, into formworking, and moved up to Alice Springs. So that was a bit of a really good experience to sort of just get away from my hometown and experience something completely different economy, different geographic location. And yeah, it gave me a pretty good sort of grounding in how things go together on the site, and which sort of ended up being a bit of a foundation for my work in building regulation. Path wasn't, exactly as smooth as what everyone sort of goes about. I had a few major health scares, which forced me to sort of rethink about my career. So I firstly had a motorbike accident when I was in Alice Springs and had a bit of a compound fractured my leg, tibia and fibia, which, now I'm left with a bit of a titanium rod through my leg. And and that sort of dropped my motivation in all sorts of physically demanding work, which, made it hard. And then about a year later, I had a experienced heart failure. So, had what's called a dilated cardiomyopathy, where your heart sort of just inflames about 3 times the size, and sort of had a bit of a, I guess, an epiphany when the doctor's sitting at the end of your bed saying, what do you do for a career? You need to start looking for something else and have a rethink about,
Wow.
where you're going to go. And yeah, that was a bit of an ultimatum sort of thing. So, but the universe, thankfully, and a cadetship popped up at one of the councils down here, and offered me a job as a building surveyor and to put me through an education essentially, which, in my earlier career days, I'd always wanted to do something a bit more and advance myself, but just never knew how or where. And this was a bit of a destiny thing, I guess. The universe aligned and gave me this opportunity, and I didn't even know what a building surveyor was at the start, to be honest, and how they contributed to sort of the broader industry. And once I got into the role, I was quickly realised how important it is, and with the right sort of education mindset, invested heavily into the profession. I found myself become pretty passionate about the role and the impact I can have on not only the construction industry, but just building quality, compliance, everything from the ground up. So and I guess over time, as I've become more and more advanced and experienced in the role, I've begun to start helping people understand why the rules exist, how they support better and safer outcomes. So that's eventually led me to where I'm now, starting my own business as JT certification services. So I always dreamt of running a business, but didn't know what, how, didn't want to be touching tools for the rest of my life. So yeah, this was a natural next step, and yeah, I was been a bit scary and nerve wracking, but yeah, and on top of that, got my first child due in November. So yeah, what better way to
Yeah.
sort of um you know build a bit of a flexible life around my business, family, and yeah, the future of the profession. So that's where I am today, and yeah, all those little bits and pieces, like you mentioned in the start, becoming president of Limestone Coast, a government inspectorial group, just basically a group of professionals, cleaners, building surveyors, health officers, and that. Yeah, sort of a group to help get together and advocate for our professions and within local government. But obviously, leaving that, I've left that role now, and yeah, focusing more on the business. So yeah, it's been interesting.
It's all happening for you. Lots of new things
Yes,
happening in 2025. That's awesome.
yeah, lots happening in the next 6 months, that's for sure.
Congratulations on starting your business and congratulations on your very first child.
Yeah, thank
So you have been on both sides, as you have just mentioned. You've been on the trade side, concreting, fitting and turning. Fitting and turning, you said?
I did do fitting and turning post high school, did some mechanical engineering and yeah, just boiler making. That was initially the trades I want to get into. My brother's a boiler maker and he's a fitter and turner as well now. So that was my passion. But yeah, unfortunately, to the opportunities weren't there at the time when I was doing those I guess cert twos. I think in out of high school you do sort of TAFE during high school, but yeah, never got the opportunity to get into an employment opportunities. That's all right.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But what exactly is fitting and turning? I don't actually know what it is.
Generally doing a lot of more, like, sort of more mechanical engineering. So, using lathes and horizontal bores and stuff like that to, yeah,
So like
sort of,
metal work?
metal work, fabricate parts and pieces, bits and
Yeah,
pieces
okay.
for machinery and stuff. So, yeah, very fiddly, very accurate sort of works.
You're a details guy?
I'm a details guy, and I
Yeah.
found that when I did cabinet making too, because you're still working in the millimeters, the tolerances are very small. So, but yeah, Dad always said, mate, you have a trade, you can go anywhere. And by
Yeah.
God, he was right, because yeah, it took me all throughout, or throughout Australia essentially, and yeah, it's benefited me now in the long run. So
Excellent. Excellent. So, in all of that, you've been through your trades, and then as a certifier, you've been through the government side of it and now the private certification side of it. I know you've kind of just moved into the private certification side, but what was the impetus to move out of local government and into your own private practice?
to be honest, there's some of the bureaucracy that comes with government, like I don't know, it might just been my experience, I guess, but I think I just love the passion of the building surveying, the role itself. All the local government responsibilities that come with it. It's just, yeah, like you sort of find yourself getting sidetracked on small other tasks and bits and pieces that aren't, I don't know, don't have the outcomes that, yeah, sort of fulfill my sort of career ambitions, I guess. Yeah, it was pretty easy. And down here in Mount Gambier, like we don't actually have there's no private certification firm. So from here to Adelaide, so I was like, well, there's a bit of a gap in the market. There's my opportunity. Um, yeah, and we're really limited on resources down here, unfortunately, just because of distance and yeah, being so close, I guess, to the Victorian border in between Melbourne and Adelaide, just sort of yeah, people can sort of access from both sides. But in terms of building surveying, there's sort of a really limited pool of guys down here. So yeah, that was the opportunity.
Yeah, right. So the benefit of being in private practice is that, you mentioned bureaucracy. It's quicker going through a private certifier. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well,
That's the benefit that you would offer as a private certifier?
yeah, and that's what I'm certainly trying to sell. Like, it doesn't always work in that way, depending on as things like documentation, the quality of that documentation. But yeah, essentially, you're trying to sell yourself as trying to streamline the process a bit more, trying to get in at the same time. A planning consent or a planning assessment's been underway. You can sort of jump in at the same time, given that you've got all the documentation there to undertake an assessment. Yeah, you should essentially, for some of the pretty straightforward building designs, you can pretty much have it all assessed by the time they've got the planning consent done, have all your plans stamped, and then once planning consent's issued, then you can do your part. Takes yeah a very short amount of time, and they can builders and stuff can, I think it's more for me, it's more about just streamlining, but yeah, trying to ensure that builders and that can stick to a schedule as well. We're finding probably down here where we're a bit more limited on resources, that because some guys are taking their time, maybe from the cities and that as well. You know, and especially with that, well, I think we've got 20 business days to undertake assessments for planning and 20 business days for building, depending on what sort of development is. If I can reduce that 20 business days down to 2 days or 1 day, try and have it done essentially for builders, that allows them to communicate with their customers and get their build started quicker. So yeah, there's benefits to it. It all depends, obviously, the complexity of a development, but yeah, that's what we're trying to market ourselves as, is a quicker, streamlined process. Yeah, so that's what I'll try to do
Okay.
anyway.
Yep. And you said that once the building consent is done, then you can have all of your work done. So if you could just, this is, I'm going a bit off track here, but I just need to understand, because I don't
That's
really
all right.
understand this process.
Yeah.
So that planning consent, that's through the council. That's not
Yeah.
through you.
Well, look,
And then the
depending.
part that you do is the building rules consent?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So it's usually like through a council, it's a 3-step process essentially. Planning consent, that gets whatever decision made, and then your building consent starts after 5 days of verification, 20 days of assessment time for a class 1 and 10. If it's a class 2 to 9 for a commercial or industrial development, then it's drawn out to 60 days. But essentially, you've got to wait for the planning consent to be issued before the building consent can be verified, and then that assessment starts through a council. Whereas if you were to do a private certifier, you can have all that documentation supplied to the private certifier in concurrent with the
Right.
planning.
Okay.
Yeah, subject to nothing.
Is that too lots of fees? Is it cheaper to go through the council or do you pay the fees anyway?
You pay the fees, and look, it's
Yeah.
up to the business owner essentially to determine their fees. Yeah, some guys might go above and beyond. Some guys might be competitive, playing the safe fees. They're all, pretty balanced, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Okay. Thank you for that.
that's all right.
I'm sure most of the people listening are builders and they already know all this stuff and they're like, come on, move on. But I
I know,
needed to
that's all right.
understand.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
So what is one of the most concerning things? I'm interested to know what you found. Like, do you do on-site inspections as part of your role?
I don't anticipate doing too many at this stage, just in a private capacity. But yeah, at local government, we certainly have our own statutory requirements to uphold inspections. So we're required to get to at least one mandatory inspection for class 1 dwellings, and then anything class 2 to 9, you pretty much had to get to just about every one of them. So, but it's some of the concerning things I guess we'd come across. It's hard to pick one, I guess. It's probably not always the worst thing, but stuff that keeps showing up, I guess, job after job, becomes pretty concerning. I guess one of the biggest issues we see now is probably the poor quality in waterproofing preparation. It's like such a pretty critical component for a sort of long-term durability of a build, but it's still, it's treated a bit, I guess, as an afterthought in some cases. So generally you see membranes that applied properly, water stops missing
You're talking
all the
about
time.
bathrooms here, wet areas?
Yeah, wet areas,
Yeah.
and that's pretty common. And like I said, a report I'd received just recently was a report where they had waterproofing failure, but it was identified to about 12 months to 18 months afterwards, where mold actually started to appear on some of the linings within the dwelling. So yeah, the occupants
So it became
unfortunately.
visible after
Yeah,
about 12 to 18 months, became
yeah,
visible on the
correct.
outside of the plasterboard?
It
Yeah,
must have
right.
been a hairline crack, or just a really fine puncture in the waterproofing. But yeah, essentially water seeped in the shower drain. It was seeping out over time every time they'd shower, obviously. And and then eventually mold started to appear on the other side of the wall of the bathroom. And and then eventually they had some air quality testing done in the house, and the occupants had to vacate much immediately and um, get some investigation work underway. So people don't really understand I think what I sort of find is that some of the guys doing this work just don't understand the long-term consequences because they don't see it. Initially you could something structural, right? You're going to see a crack or something damaged in timber or some form of structural damage. Easy to identify then because there's consequences from that. But things like waterproofing, where it's going to take a lot longer to sort of start to see the consequences that the guys on the ground just don't really have that fear, or they just they just make casual decisions around it. So, but yeah, like I guess
Yeah,
some of
right.
the other concerns are more structural concerns, things like in roof structures and that we see things like timbers and members swapped out for, you know, not always, I wouldn't say more, I guess, less structurally capable timber beams and stuff, but they'll just swap them out because of material selection. You know, some of the manufacturers that do the designs and provide trusses, wall frames, and that, they'll swap out beams for different size beams without sort of
The supplier
documenting
will.
it. Yeah, the supplier will, because that's what they've got in stock as well. So I've found you go on site and you're going, you know, why is there two LVLs put in there except for the one that they've specified? It's because, we didn't have that one in stock, so we just gave you two of them, other ones instead. But none of it's ever
And
documented.
instead of this one, we gave you two smaller ones and that'll
Yeah,
do.
yeah. Essentially, look. Sometimes they might still be able to carry the same loads and do the same thing, but yeah, just there's a lot of stuff like that where if you're not onto it, you're not picking up. Some of the guys just make casual decisions around. Yeah, that'd be right, sort of that laid back attitude.
You'll be all right, mate. So
Yeah, essentially.
is that something that you would pick up and say that needs to be changed? Or can you
We'd
go,
certainly question it and say that you can either have this assessed and provide the documentation and support it, essentially.
yeah,
If it's adequate, then by all means.
get it re-engineered, make sure that's
Yeah,
going to work?
yeah,
Yeah.
essentially. Probably the more when it comes to steel, structural steel and that, that's when you're probably saying, well, we need to get an engineer down here to have a look and assess it and make some better decisions and provide some form of documentation to support it, or any suggestions or recommendations to change it if it needs to. But I guess and that's like, this is all on lawful jobs, DAs that have been approved and stuff like that. It's when I was at council, some of the retrospective stuff that you see is the concerning stuff. I've walked through buildings where structures where people have just put things makeshift, use whatever materials they wanted, and it's not you're not questioning compliance. You're questioning basic safety on these some things. It's very alarming what people, I guess to me, I just say it's a lack of education, lack of awareness, that drives the decisions.
So when you say lawful jobs, could you just clarify what you mean by that? Like,
Yeah, like, so essentially jobs that have got full development approval they've got their planning and building consent and a full development approval. But yeah, like, obviously when you're in a compliance position as well for a local government, we come across jobs all the time where people have gone and built structures, buildings, pools, all
I see
the
what you're saying, without any
without
approvals.
any form of
Yeah, yeah,
approval.
yeah.
So,
Okay, got it. Yeah.
but yeah, look, I've had tradies and builders do the same thing, and they just think, get away with it for now,
I
and
know what
until
I'm doing.
yeah, till
Yeah,
such
yeah.
time someone questions it, and you're like, oh mate, you just But yeah, again, lack of education, lack of awareness. Some of these guys just think they can get away with anything. But I'm a big believer in communication and education. And yeah, if I can't, try and persuade people to understand the why, they might think twice about making some of these decisions. So yeah, I'm pretty communicative with some of the guys I see on site and really make sure that they understand the consequences of, the risks they're taking.
Yeah.
Just trying to, I've actually had brought up photos sometimes and like, hey, if you left it like this is what probably could happen, or this is what I've seen, through case studies and stuff. And okay, all right, we better attend to that pretty, quickly, sort of thing. You shouldn't have to,
Yeah.
but anyway,
Yeah,
interesting.
it's the same. It's same in my game, just,
Mm.
but people have to understand the why. It's not the what,
Yeah,
it's the why.
exactly right, exactly right. That's why we have these standards. So
It's time for a quick sponsor shout out. Today's episode of the Building Sciology Potty is proudly brought to you by our amazing sponsors, Enduro Builders and Climasure. A huge thank you to these incredible businesses for supporting the podcast and helping us spread the word about better buildings to live and breathe in. Your support makes this podcast possible. Please head over to their websites and follow their social pages. Speaking of water, we all know that buildings don't like baths. Water is very, very bad for buildings in any way, shape and form if it can't dry. What are your thoughts on leaving timber frames exposed? I did a post last week, I think it was last week or so ago, about that showed a development here in Adelaide near the city where it's been exposed for 2 winters at least, possibly longer, and the frames are black. They are black. and the house has been bricked up, clad, finished. I believe people, I haven't been past recently. The last time I went past was January. So now it's July. So that was a while ago. I'm presuming they're pretty much finished now and people are living in them.
Yep.
There's 10 townhouses
Oh my
and
God.
it's bad. It's bad. And the response to the reel was insane. It's like up at 150,000 views now. And there's just comment after comment after comment after comment of people telling me that they've seen this development that's happened, that development that's happened, that development, that house, my neighbor, this one. And I'm just like,
God.
You've
opened up a
like
can
this
of worms
is
here.
so bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad. No one's checking. Local council members, local council like staff, are bound to have been driving past these sites.
Surely.
What is going on? I mean, I know you can't just knock down 10 townhouses, right? Like, but how?
I think it's a very common issue. Like I said, a bit down in the sunny southeast. We get a lot of timber frames exposed to weather, very long periods of time. Yeah, I think that sort of traditional mentality around should be right is pretty common as well, but it's frustrating. But yeah, look, it's
The link between this practice, like this unregulated, like there's no rule that says you have to check for mold on your building frames before you clad. There's no rule that says, I mean, the timber framing code says that the timber has to be less than 14% moisture content, but that's like at supply. That's not when it goes up. So if it gets sacked during construction, there's no rule, there's no regulation, there's no clause in the building code that says, get a moisture meter out and test the dang thing before you put your insole on. This is just a major, major, major black hole. And the link between that unregulated part of the building industry and the health industry is still yet to be officially recognized. Like everyone is a fairly broad understanding that mold is really bad for your health and really, really bad for some people, but there's no official medical link.
There's no legislative requirement, which is the scary part. And I think, but the more that I think that more focus has shifted now to things like condensation management and stuff in the code.
Yes.
I think you find like things, you sort of health and amenity within buildings is probably going to get more of a focus to and a bit more drawn attention to. Timber frame exposure, like you said, touched on in terms of moisture content stuff, that could be a solution as well. Trying to bring in something that sort of, I guess, documents or indicates or details around having a level of moisture content in your timber frames prior to linings going on. Because like I said, when I have witnessed, been outside, inspected buildings where they've got mold appearing on their timber frames, we generally say, look, start with your roof linings first, let this dry out as long as possible, and try and eliminate some of this. And if you've got any sort of antifungal chemical sprays or some sort of solutions to be applying to them, please get onto it ASAP. But yeah, again, these guys, most of the industry, don't see the repercussions in that. Again, it's just a lack of education, a lack of awareness.
They're just so nonchalant.
A pretty serious one I had to attend to was a couple of years ago where it was an owner-builder development, and lack of finances, but they had timber frames all constructed, no linings, no roof linings, it was just all expired. So they left it 2 winters, up to nearly 2 years, 18 months, 2 years, and again, timber frames were black. I said, nah, this is ridiculous. We're going to have to review, because obviously through your development process as well, you get 2 years to commence, or it used to be 12 months to commence your development, and then you get 3 years essentially to complete your development. So their DA had they had extensions of time. It dragged out for nearly 10 years, I think, like that. And council were like, nah, these guys are going to complete this job. This is ridiculous. These guys are sovereign citizens too, so a really challenging couple to sort of deal with. And I said to my manager, like, we need to get some advice on this, because this is, if we allow them to continue, you've got some really structurally concerning items through the house. Timber frame obviously is rotted out in some areas. It's lost all its preservative treatment, and termite treatment as well.
Exactly.
And there's some serious structural issues with this place. What do we do? And they're going to have to either relodge or something as well and get a new application, and then have someone, if they decide to keep this timber, to verify the adequacy and durability of this timber. Council weren't willing to go through the court process or get legal advice around it, so they just said, look, extend it. And I was, it's in those sort of instances, that's where I think the regulatory side of it really lacks those strong enforcement measures to be able to, for a council to make I suppose, a strong decision to enforce something. It's really difficult when you're sort of relying on legal resources, which comes with a financial resource, which comes with hard decision making as well. And if you've got poor leadership, those decisions are really hard to get, to get out of them, I suppose, and really tackle down some of these issues. And these building owner builders eventually put a roof on it and been slowly chipping away at it still. But I'd sort of
Still
want my
not
hands.
finished.
Nah, it's still not finished. I'd sort of want my hands clean of it and said, nah, I don't want anything to do with this. Um,
Oh, goodness.
council. I think a colleague of mine, he sort of continued with the enforcement approach on it and got some advice around it. I think eventually they got someone to come down and do an inspection on it, provide some recommendations around what to replace, what timbers and stuff to replace before they could continue on. And I think council eventually were satisfied that that was going to be suitable enough. I'd actually left that in that time as well, so didn't actually see the end result and where it's continued on with. But I think the last time I seen it was they had a roof on it, so I was like, oh, we're getting somewhere. But just it's scary. I had to be in the house,
Wow.
5-10 years later if it's still got structural issues or any timbers starting to, have got that moisture content. I think after 20% of moisture in your timber, that's where it starts to rot too. So,
Yep, that's bad.
hmm,
Oh
interesting.
gosh.
That's just some of the
I mean,
realities, like,
I just cannot. It's like the biggest black hole, and I just like even certified passive house that
mm,
has got a big focus on indoor relative humidity levels, no thermal bridging. Condensation just doesn't happen in a certified passive house. It's got the external WRBs to stop water from getting in, like wind-driven rain or
yeah,
from the outside. So that's all sorted. And I guess a certified passive house builder is much more likely to get that WRB on really fast to stop those frames getting wet during winter. But
mm,
even certified passive house is not immune to rain during construction.
no,
So it seems to me that it's this particular issue, it needs some attention.
yeah. Uh,
It needs some urgent
I think again,
attention.
it's going to come down to an awareness thing, education, project management. Really, like I guess they're pretty proactive down here. Generally, when you see frames going up, you'll see a roof on it pretty much that same week, if not the week after down here. So the
Yeah.
guys here are pretty proactive in understanding that those some of the issues. But you do get the odd one where they might have put them up, whether it's a volume builder. We've got too many jobs on, and then we get it's been a pretty wet winter these last couple of months. So, but we're just going to be proactive, like especially in a council sort of position. Well, when I was in a council position, he's going to be pretty proactive in terms of getting out there and trying to inspect as much as you can. And that's probably what it comes down to essentially as well, is just more proactive inspections. And I think where SA sits at the moment, regulatory wise, you're only required to look at one inspection through the entire process of the class 1 dwelling. One, and that you can choose whether it's concrete, whether it's timber framing, whether it's a waterproofing preparation. If you get to all three, awesome. But I guess the concerning part is inspections wise in South Australia, they're very, very soft on those mandatory requirements, mandatory inspections. Like regulatory wise, a council or inspector only has to get to one throughout the entire build process. Whereas generally in neighbouring states, other jurisdictions, you pretty much have to get every part of the construction phase. From even some of the site prep, inspect it, footings inspections, framing inspections, waterproofing inspections, completion inspections. Whereas here, you just get into one of them, and you sort of pick and choose the timing of it, especially in regional areas. You're very limited, so in terms of resources and getting out to them. So it's interesting, but there's a lot to improve on, I think. And I think
Yeah, it's some fairly crucial,
people like
like,
us. Hmm.
sorry to interrupt you. Just there's a couple of like fairly like simple things. I mean, they seem simple to me. Maybe they're not so simple to implement. I don't know. But there's a couple of things like moisture testing timbers, or getting WRBs on really fast. Those sorts of things. Or I spoke to one certifier in Adelaide here, and she does work in SA and in Northern Territory. And she was the two states are just worlds apart. In Northern Territory, the inspections are, you go to every stage has an inspection and you have to go to it. And here it's much looser. I don't know how that,
Yeah. I don't understand just that discrepancies between I understand, I do understand, but I don't like understanding why we don't have something consistent throughout every state. Like,
I know.
is it equally the same in every state? They're all constructed the same way, same methods of construction. There might be slight variations in the code, but it's all the same. Yeah, it's the same finished result. Why are we lacking in South Australia? Resources? Yeah, I don't know. Small pool of people to do it.
So if you came across a multi frame, like I'm doing this mold testing stuff course at the moment through the Australian College of Environmental Sciences. I've done the mold testing subject and I'm on to the advanced mold testing, which is more about remediation. I'm only 2 weeks into it, so we haven't got into the nitty gritty yet. But from the last subject I did, we were told that the only way to get rid of mold, like, you recommend using sprays and things. We were told the only way to actually get rid of mold is to either sandblast it or ice blasting.
Yeah, right.
Literally abrasion or scrubbing the mold off, because if you bleach it or spray it or cover it up or whatever, then you're killing the surface mold. But timber is porous, so any of the roots or the hyphae are still in there, and so you bleach it, and all you need is a bit of moisture, and it all grows back. So getting rid of mold is literally, if it's a porous substrate, it's literally removal is the only way.
Yeah, try telling that to a 30-year-old seasoned veteran builder who,
I know, right?
He doesn't say it. He just grabs a planer and just goes straight up the timber frame or whatever it is. And all right, there you go, it's gone. So
it's still gone. A planer, it's gone, but you're still getting rid of it.
You're getting rid of it, but that's probably not the right process. But
you're making your frames a bit.
I think until something's actually adopted into our building codes and any sort of relevant standards, it's going to be tricky to sort of navigate and try and force people to get rid of it. I'm not saying, we can't try, but it's just one of those things. Unless you can reference something, some guys just go, well, it's best practice, mate. It's not really a compliance thing. So, continue. And that's the challenge.
I can't solve all the problems today, unfortunately.
No, exactly right. No, it's more than that.
Just talk about it, make people, more aware of it, and just try to spread the discussion. Spread the discussion.
Exactly right. Education.
That's right. Do you do any like seminars or anything like that? Or did you in council, or are you like, do you plan on doing any information sessions?
In terms of like getting my own education, or like going
to people in Mount Gambier, come and I'll tell you all about why this is important.
Generally we do. We obviously have industry bodies like HIA and that come down into sort of their own education seminars, but we have a group of us building surveyors. There's about 9 of us down in our region. We actually get together I think 3 times, maybe 4 times a year sometimes, and to get together and talk about some of these issues. Especially if there's been new adoptions to the code or amendments. If there's anything we just find consistently occurring and some compliance issues, we'll try and get together and talk about it. But other than that, we don't really. I tried reaching out to pretty much the entire industry down here, getting some information out and saying, who would be keen to get together once every 6 months to talk about issues we face, regional, region sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
No
feedback. No one wanted a bar of it. No one cares. I was like, oh. And then, I'll get frustrated because I'm like, I'm trying to be a bit more, get a bit of advocacy and trying to reach out. And then you get a week later, they get a builder ring up. I've got this issue. This guy doesn't do it. What do I got to do it? And stuff like, well, you know what? If we all got together and had a conversation about it, we might be all on the same level and get a bit of consistency, sort of thing. But,
collaboration, people.
Collaboration, man. I'm like, I get you're the enemy of the builder down the road, but at the same time, we're all trying to get the same result. So
I think that's the really great element of being in this, the better building space that I'm in, is all the builders, the rising tide floats all boats. All the builders, whether or not they're directly competing,
or not, or if they've got a history, because, we've got supervisors that used to work for that company that now work for that company. And, it's Adelaide. So they all know each other, or a lot of them know each other, but there's still this culture of let's all learn together, which is great. Now, I'm going to be in Mount Gambier in October-ish, doing a blower door test. So let's catch up. I'm thinking about doing like an open day for the blower door test, inviting a bunch of people, try and make them care. And then maybe, I don't know, we can sort out like an information session or something.
Certainly. I wish you could come to a blower door test in my house, because I can feel everybody breeze that comes through here. It's ridiculous. This is a brand new home, not even 12 months old. So,
I'll be there in October. I'll spend a couple of days and I'll.
Let's do it. That'd be awesome.
Sounds good. Sounds awesome. There's a certified passive house being built in Robe at the moment.
Oh yes, I've seen that. Sorry.
Yeah. So they're one of my clients. That's well on track for getting under the 0.6 air changes that it needs to get certification for passive house. So that's really cool. Having a certified passive house down in that area of Australia,
especially in Robe. Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Cold, brass knuckles down there. You're getting all the Southern Ocean coming up. So it's cold climate out here, and I think, and that's they want to probably lead into one of our other questions and responses in terms of things I'd like to see changes. The more focus on thermal performance in homes, because this is I'm 12 months into my house and I'm sitting here going, this thing is not 6-star. This is not an energy efficient home. I'm freezing. I've got my bloody splitty. I'm having the splitty on nearly every day.
Yeah,
and you're just like, nah, this isn't how it should be. Like, should be comfortable with having to rely on mechanical services and whatnot. Mind you, just about every house in here has a wood, slow combustion heater as well. But you shouldn't have to.
Yeah. Envelope first.
Anyway, that's all right.
This question, is there enough accountability in the current system, or is too much trust being placed in paperwork and self-certification? Self-certification is not a thing, is it? Or is it? Because, like, for example, when I was doing my studies, we had a building certifier come in and do a talk for us, and he talked about all these things, and then he got to energy efficiency, and I was working at that stage. I was still studying, but I was working in star ratings in energy efficiency at that point. So he started talking about energy, and I was like, this is my thing. I can follow along what he's saying. But basically what he said was, energy efficiency is extremely specialized, and we basically just rely on the consultants. So, like, generally, as a certifier, you are kind of required to understand a heck of a lot of things about a building, but you can't know everything. That's, you can't possibly know everything. You can't understand every, fire structure, energy, I don't know, waterproofing, everything. And so, basically this guy was saying, basically we get a report with a certain business name on it, and we just go, oh yeah, we'll trust that.
Yeah. There's a few checks and measures you'd probably want to put in place. I have found some guys that do the design work of the building will actually be doing their own energy efficiency ratings too, which is not, you have to be one or the other. Can't be both.
So that's
which can be, there's things in it, sort of, a bit of conflict there. It is, I think the more that the code relies on software and stuff as well to do those sort of checks and, any sort of design work as well in terms of NAHERS and those specific softwares that do all those assessments and analysis of different products. And it is becoming more and more challenging for a certified to do some form of DTS on a building just through what's supplied in the code.
Yeah. So do you do DTS assessments yourself?
Rarely. Well, very rarely. If it is, it's probably for something very small, maybe an extension or something like that.
They're the worst.
Yeah, they are the worst.
They're so hard.
You can sort of, generally we'll just try and rely on some form of energy efficiency certificate. But again, you're doing a bit of checks and measures on there, making sure the materials line up with, what's been designed and window size and bits and pieces like that are all being applied onto the actual drawings, not just put in there
window
as
sizes.
Window size, and not just in there as a model. Like I find sometimes they'll just put what they can into the report to try and get it over the line, and it might differ to what's actually on the design documentation too. So you still do a few checks and balances, but think the more and more complex energy efficiency you get, so probably more going to have to rely on consultants. And look, it's a unique industry and a unique profession. I kudos to the guys that do it. Like I can see it being a pretty challenging assessment process moving forward, especially the more and more we drift into 7, 8, 9, eventually, hopefully a 10 stars into the future. I think you're going to need those guys on the ground to provide that documentation. It's no different to an engineer and stuff like that, though. We can't be assessing structural steel and stuff like that and making our own judgments on it. So I can see why that same thing applies to energy efficiency. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did it for a number of years. I've been out of it for a good 4 years now, but I did those assessments for 7 years. And so DTS, star ratings, and back when it was 6 stars, and verification against the reference building. And what you said about the design documentation differing from the assessment and then differing from what actually gets built, that's the whole reason I left that job behind. And now I work in sort of passive house and high performance, where it's actually, there's verification on site for what's actually going on. Because I just thought that we can do better.
I tend to find as well that it's the like you said, they're drifting to sort of what's being constructed. Like I think if you haven't got a builder that's really got to focus on things like energy efficiency, those construction methods and is where the performance at the end of the day, like my house, I'm sitting in this brand new home, the performance of it isn't where it's meant to be in terms of what a 6-star energy rated house should be in terms of so I think there's a lot of gaps in that sort of assessment process to design documentation to actually constructed and then there's sort of the long-term performance of that house. There's a lot of gaps in there that need to be addressed, I think, and probably a bit more education. Again, education is a big word. It keeps getting repeated, but it's just so common.
And the communication, like the building code changes, Australian standards change or whatever, but particularly the building code, because that changes every 3 years now. And the changes from 19 to 2022 was significant for class 1, and from 22 to 25, I think the changes aren't so significant, but the wording I think is going to be like it's going to make things easier to understand. It's going to be clearer, which is great. But the communication I find between the regulatory bodies and those on the ground is pretty minimal. Like your average tradie is not signing up for webinars. The builder you would expect to be keeping on top of all of those sorts of things, but your average tradie wouldn't know most of the changes that happen.
No, and I guess it's probably a pretty critical thing, or what I find pretty important as well is having that. It's all well and good to have design documentation all detailed and everything to satisfy me, but I try and find that putting installation stuff in there as well. I'm not sure other certifiers might do it anyway, but generally I'll try and ensure that all your installation documentation forms part of your approval. So your builders and that can pick up documentation. Oh yeah, this is actually installed as well. Trying to fiddle around Google and trying to find, the materials or the systems they're using and trying to figure out how to install them and that as well. And I think that's especially probably your line of work where you're dealing with building maps and that as well, where things have to be done, to the fine T, sort of really detailed work. If you don't have educated tradies doing that or know or understand the sort of construction methods around that and the long-term performance and how it impacts long-term performance, then you're going to continue to have leaky buildings and
So, that's why I love my job so much, because just even one builder at a time. The light bulb goes on and they get it, and I'm like,
Well, the builder that did his blower door test and got his reference building, he put it all over social media. He was stoked, and all of a sudden, he's got his customers picked up because we want a more energy efficient home. This guy's and so. The focus is obviously all of a sudden shifted, and we're not just getting a beautiful. I'm getting a more energy efficient home. To them, it's value. To them, it's
give them something to boast about, and tell their friends about. I love it.
Sure. So,
love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I think you mentioned I think you might have had another fella on your podcast talking about in Britain every house has to be blower door tested nowadays.
Yep.
Now, that is something I would love to see adopted into Australia. That would be, 100%. Especially down here in our climate, bloody hell, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I would love to see that too. We've only got 60, 70 odd ATTMA blower door testers in the country at the moment.
Yeah, right.
So we need to
Okay.
train up a heck of a lot more blower door testing techs. So if you're listening and you want to add a skill set to your career, or if you're wanting a career change, or if you, I don't know, just think it might be fun,
Yeah.
go get in touch with Sean Maxwell of ATTMA. Google ATTMA, email him. I'll put his contact details in the show notes and hit him up, because he runs training for level 1 ATTMA testers regularly, and we need more testers in Australia to help keep increasing the quality of construction. So
Do you
think about it.
do that as part of your energy efficiency qualification as well? Like your is it form part of that? I don't know, is it a
The studies I did.
practical thing? Yeah, in your studies you've done, or
No, I did I just did my study was a diploma of building design, and then from there I got into energy efficiency, because I decided I didn't like how buildings looked was less important to me than how they worked. And then I got
yeah,
into energy efficiency, like building code compliance, and from there I got into blower door testing, and from there I got into passive house, and from there I got into all of the stuff I'm doing now. So it was, and like high growth thermal simulation. So it was a bit of a step-by-step building block progression for me.
Yep.
But yeah, it wasn't all in one. It was building upon previous things,
Yeah,
and now
right.
I'm doing the building biology mold stuff. So yeah,
Yep.
over a period of
Ah,
10
interesting.
or 12 years, just sort of built
Yep.
one thing upon another.
Interesting career. That's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it just keeps getting more and more interesting.
Yeah, it does actually.
So I mean, I've got a question here about awareness. About what a certifier actually does. Is that a question that you think you've got an answer for? Because it's that's why I kind of at the beginning of this conversation was like asking for clarity on a few things, like a few steps, because I couldn't tell you what a certifier does, honestly.
When I first started, I didn't even know what they were, so that's okay.
And I wonder if your average, like, the builders have to deal with councils and certifiers, but outside of that, we don't really
Really?
we don't really understand.
Yeah. No, look, I in my time at councils now, we had a lot of people come and yeah, obviously didn't really understand the process. I don't think, not always. Yeah, a lot of the time, I think your builders and designers, they just see it's probably as more of a tick box sort of function, or as yeah, more of an administration hurdle. So, but I tend to try and communicate and build relationships with the guys to like I said before, like try and really explain why behind things. And yeah, it's to me, as soon as you sort of open up that conversation and get them to understand what I guess consequences of things, why there's a building code, why there's standards, why there's always this minimum requirements of things, yeah, their mindset starts to shift, especially yeah, more homeowners and people that aren't in the industry as well, to try and explain what National Construction Code is, what's adopted and why it changes, every state's got their own deviations from their own little areas in it. Yeah, to some people it's just jargon. It's just like, yeah, just tell me if I can get approved or something like that. So
Yeah.
and it really depends on how sovereign their bloody mindset is too. I find that some guys just don't respect regulation; they just don't care. But yeah, some are stuck in their ways. I've got a few building designers here that are really, as soon as a change is brought out in the building code or in the standards, they'll call me straight away and say, hey, have you seen this? Right, how can we adjust our designs, or what can we do to try and reflect this change? So yeah, some guys are really collaborative. Some of them just don't care and don't really want to know anything about you until they want something, I guess.
Yeah.
We're pretty fortunate in the region. There's good culture down here. So yeah, there's a real small pool of designers and architects and I wouldn't say builders, but for the most part, they do understand what we do as certifiers, and particularly because we've got a small pool of us as well. We've got, I don't know, yeah, 9 of us, and most of us are all born and bred in this sort of region. So we've all either come from the construction industry itself as tradesmen, come into these roles as building surveyors. I think that's probably a pretty critical thing, or pretty important, I don't know, important part of education, I think, should be how you advocate for these professions. Because again, there's a very limited pool of us. We all come from trades. You do find that most of the guys in building survey, do come from a trade-based background, and it's it's so important because you've also got those relationships, traditionally historically with the builders and the trades, but then, you've got to understand the practical side of things.
Yeah, gives you that
And
credibility.
it's super beneficial when builders approach you if they've got a bit of an issue. You can, honest, 9 times out of 10, find a pragmatic sort of approach to help provide a solution to them, and they respect that rather than just saying, "Oh no, this is what's in the code. You have to do this." There is sort of some form of reference there, but to them, it's you get back onto their level, and that's where the respect is earned, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Some do, some don't. To answer your question. So, sorry.
That's all right. I have a question that I want to ask, and we can cut this bit out if you want. But it was I put it on LinkedIn a little while back, and I got bite back from a certifier. So when I was doing my studies, I read an article that said that building surveyors were 7 times more likely to be struck off or have their licenses revoked for malpractice than any other profession, because there's a real handshake bro culture and things get overlooked via a handshake.
Yeah.
So we can cut this bit out if you want. We don't have to comment on it, but it's just something that I've always wondered about. Would you like to comment on this?
Look, I think there's been a heavy focus on that in the interstate wise, especially, obviously you said Mr. TikTok inspector, really outing builders and whatnot, and then obviously the building surveyors that are connected to that. I think there's probably a lot more to it, maybe, whether it's a handshake connection or whether they've just got good collaborations, good connections with their clients. I wouldn't put it past some guys to sort of get more comfortable with the builders and what they put together, and sort of, not necessarily, I wouldn't say turning a blind eye to it, but just feeling more comfortable, I guess. And I think, every individual and every professional is going to have their own interpretation and ethical boundaries. And I try and ensure that even though I've got relationships with builders, definitely not pushing or letting those boundaries drop, because it's just not worth the risk. And as much as you want to try and be someone's friend on a personal space, there's a professional part of that you really have to maintain. Is in terms of code of conduct, accreditation wise. I don't think in South Australia we're probably as, like, it's probably not as seen as much as you would see, I guess, or exposed as what you'd see in Victoria. And those, whether you got large volumes of builds happening, there's probably a much larger pool of surveyors and certifiers probably been in the industry for, predominantly most of their careers. So they do probably get a bit of, I guess, leniency and, I don't even know what the right words to say, but I don't know. It's just, I guess it's different state by state too, but depends how much risk you're willing to take in the day, and if you're willing to get caught out. But I know for sure it's just not worth the risk. Not these days.
I think so.
Look how much of it's being exposed on the media. It's just disgusting, to be honest. I hope none of that gets dragged over to our, South Australian. We see some of the results of poor buildings, poor construction, and poor quality. I'm actually really surprised that we don't actually have standards and tolerances adopted into South Australia, and it's pretty disappointing that we don't. I hope that some stage in the future that we do, because that's
standards and tolerances. What do you mean?
Yeah, so like Victoria and New South Wales and a few of those neighbouring states, they've actually got standards and tolerances adopted into some of their legislation, which allows for, things like if your walls out of plumbing and stuff, you can actually, there's a bit more regulatory backing behind it to enforce builders to fix it and remediate it, whereas, over here it's just all building code and standards and that's it.
The Wild West in South Australia. I'm realising it's sort of becoming apparent that there's not really all that many rules here.
Look, you could, if you were to do an inspection or complete one, you could identify those issues, but it becomes a contractual matter between the client and the builder to try and, battle that out, not necessarily an enforcement measure that we can.
Yeah, so then it's up to the homeowner to sort of force the builder to admit their mistake and fix it, and that the homeowner doesn't have very much power.
Yeah, well, when it comes to quality, like, if your wall's out of plumb, the builder's going to I don't have to fix this. It's not a compliance issue. So, so that's where the challenge lies. And like I see, you see the TikTok guy putting his videos up of walls that are, got huge bows in them and stuff like that. They can actually go back and say, all right, well, this is something that we can enforce through a regulatory or a legislative some form of function in their report. Whereas South Australia, it's a bit looser than that, and you can just you can identify it, but what happens from it's a contractual issue.
I've got a simple example. I mean, to me, it was just it's one of those ones that stuck in my mind. As a builder, I went into this beautiful architectural, bespoke high-end home in Adelaide. And I remembered it. It was a house that I had done the assessment on. I was like, oh, wow, this is so cool. I don't know why I remembered, but I did. And I walked in and there was a pool and a window overlooking the pool. I've told this story a few times, so if you've already heard it to everyone listening, I'm sorry. But it was a window overlooking a pool and there was a bench adjacent to the living kitchen.
Yeah.
And on the plans, the window was bench height and above. But what they had done in reality was put a window to the floor. So it was a floor-to-ceiling window that they had actually built. And I said to the builder who was there, the owner of the company, oh, this is not what was on the plans. This is not what I assessed. And did you get an amendment to your energy efficiency assessment? And he just kind of looked at me like I was nuts. And he was like, no, why would I do that?
What are you talking about? Right, mate, it's always been here. It's right there. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And I was like, a few little interactions like that were what caused me to then go into the space I'm in now. Because I just thought no one picked that up. And even if they did, it wouldn't have been a thing that they changed. The owner, it probably was just the owner. The owner was like, let's make the window all the way to the floor. And the builder was like, sure, whatever you want. If you want to pay for it, I'll do it. Yeah. And that's great. But it was just
happens all the time.
Yeah.
So that's those client pressures. And I could, I've seen that witness heaps of times. They're just like, oh, we'll talk to the client. The customer wants that. We'll satisfy them. But and then that comes to the documentation side of things, and that change could be drastic, especially with things like energy efficiency. This can have all sorts of implications structurally.
Exactly. That could have sent that house out of compliance quite easily. Solar heat gain, solar heat loss. That could have had it was a fairly major change. It would have had a big impact, and it was to the main living area, so it wasn't nothing.
That's where we would have went back, or a person would have went back and said, well, you need to update energy efficiency report, make sure that still complies. Give me some structural changes. Give me your glazing changes too, if there's any. From your manufacturer, to say that is, windows still construction, manufactured to the relevant standards and whatnot as well. So it's the due diligence of builder, you'd assume, but hopefully the building inspector or the certifier coming to do any sort of mandatory inspection, or at some, you'd assume, or I guess probably this is what South Australia lacks it, but no one's going to come to a final completion inspection.
No.
So that's where we lack, and that's where those changes go missed and go untouched and unheard of until such time, I don't know, sale of the house maybe, or until someone picks it up. They just all that happens. Very, very common, unfortunately. So
I didn't actually realise. I knew from my discussion with that certifier I mentioned earlier that Northern Territory had some pretty good inspection rules.
Yep.
I didn't realise that other states seem to as well, and South Australia is very far behind. So Australia as a whole is far behind, the rest of the world, and South Australia is behind Australia. So oh man, that's really upsetting.
We're getting there.
It's all right.
Think like
gives us a job. We have a job.
So there's not enough. There's just not enough advocacy, I think, in sort of the regulatory space, and into sort of the government or policymakers' ears, and say, hey, look, this is this is equally important as every other state, but it's who advocates and tries to make it look it's just as important as everyone else is a challenge. There are some changes coming up in terms of inspections, but it's that sort of help alleviate the regional pressures and the resources that all regional areas have, especially any.
What are they?
Not going to address. I think they're going to just extend the days that people have to inspect buildings. They're trying to.
So not increasing the number of inspections.
Nah.
Okay.
Actually, I think it's actually reducing it, to be honest. But and things like, well, actually, the final inspection is one that they're based, because now dwellings have certificate occupancies for any sort of Class 1 dwelling after October last year. So any house that's constructed, you don't actually have to inspect it as such, but you can rely on things like a stat deck to say that things like your bushfire water supply your firefighting water can be supplied by the owner at 6 months in the track. I don't know. So yeah, there's some interesting changes there, but not going to help us in
So
terms of compliance.
certificate of occupancy. It's interesting you mentioned that because I had actually forgotten that one.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one. Could you explain a little bit about that change and what that means, please?
Yeah, well, it used to be adopted years ago, and they removed it because, again, things like final inspections weren't occurring. Well, it was hard for councils and whatnot to get out to inspect homes when they were completed, so they essentially canned it, and then also said that it was just probably too many issues in terms of rectification work and stuff that had to be done. And yeah, look, I can't sort of clarify exactly what some of the issues were when they removed it, but yeah, they brought it in again, and it's not a bad thing. Well, obviously every other state has it, but again, who goes out and inspects these buildings to make sure that everything sort of flies is going to be the challenge, and where the answer lies is it going to function how they intend, the intent behind the legislation, or is it just going to be one of those wishy-washy documents at the end of the build to say that this house is fit for occupation? Because that's what you're going to determine as well. Is the building occupiable? Yeah, there might be some discrepancies in a few things. Some things might not comply. Again, there's been a lot of talk about the bushfire firefighting water has been something that, does the owner have to do it? Does the builder have to do it? The builders don't want to take responsibility of it because that means that could hold up them getting occupancy for the house for another 6 months. So yeah, there's been a few legislative sort of considerations there, but
if you leave it up to the
I think it's
homeowner,
good.
they might not do it, and then a fire comes,
Yep.
and then they don't have their
They got no water
firefighting
supply.
water.
I think they sort of said if you're in a high bush area, then yeah, you have to have your water supply because obviously that's
Before
what
handover, before
that's what your
occupancy.
fire services are relying on. Whereas if it's
Yeah.
like general area, like it's only for
Yeah.
water for the occupant of the house, so probably not as important. But yeah, again, it's just one of those things where people are like, well, how are we going to issue a certificate of occupancy if there's no fire water there? And so yeah, that's where the sort of arguments have been up and within the sort of regulatory world. But
Yeah.
I think certificate of occupancy is great. It's a great thing if it's done properly. If the legislative intent is there, and we can do final inspections to make sure that buildings are fit for occupation, by all means, yeah. If you need to put a certificate at the end of it, it's a good idea.
Do you choose when you do your inspection? In SA, there's only one mandatory inspection. Do you choose when that is? And do you physically have to go to site, or can you just rely on photos or a drive-by or a stat deck?
Yeah, you can choose whether it's your footings or your framing or your sort of waterproofing.
So the builder chooses, or you choose?
No, you choose it's only for it's only required by a council building inspector, not a private. So for like we might get engaged to do them anyway, but you sort of double up regardless because the council's building surveyor has to do. It's a statutory requirement for a council, so they'll choose. But yeah, we can opt. Like a client of mine might say, look, I want you to come out to every mandatory stage, plus I want you to do a completion one, and that's just them doing their own sort of additional. Going above and beyond. So I've got one builder actually. He's opted for me to do every stage inspection plus do a completion one just for his own reassurance, plus for his client's reassurance, which is
good on him.
Yeah, he's very
shout his name from the rooftops.
Yeah, so
awesome.
He's a very good builder and very good quality. Generally don't have too many issues, but yeah, it's just for him it's a reassurance thing, and for a client reassurance thing, I don't see why it shouldn't. So
good on him. That's awesome.
But yeah, it's interesting.
So if you had your choice, what would be the one change you would make to help you do your job a bit better?
Ooh, to do my job better. Probably a few. I don't know. First things, I think mandatory inspections should be, I think private certifiers should be able to undertake mandatory inspections and that be a contributor to what councils are required to do.
It makes sense, right? Like alleviate the burden, like more
people. I think
people.
because we become a relevant authority for building consent. So I think we should be the ones responsible for all the inspections throughout that build, whether it's one, still just one, or you do get to all of them. But I think the private certifier should benefit from, in terms of fees and everything that's, issued in that process too. And I think they did talk about saying that like councils can accept that a certificate from a private certifier to say they've inspected it, and that's that's going to satisfy their requirements from a council perspective too. So there was some talk about that maybe coming in, but until any of that sort of carried out, I think there should be every stage of the construction should be inspected. No different
Yeah.
to Victoria or
Yeah.
every other state. A bit of a side quest issue that I get probably caught up in is, well, I get frustrated about with some of the guys is indemnity insurance. I wish that was just removed for sheds, but I wish it was more strict around dwellings and some of the warranty around that for consumers. I think that just really lacks some of the backbone, backbone to try and protect customers and whatnot down the track, especially now the media scrutiny and stuff from the TikTok inspector.
I'm hoping to get him on as a guest. I've been emailing his assistant.
Yeah, righto. Oh, no, yeah, righto.
September, October, I've got it penciled in for a recording, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I spoke to him not long ago. He actually offered me a job in South
Really?
Australia. Yeah. He
Wicked.
goes, oh, he said, oh, you want to message me on LinkedIn? I think he was like, oh, do you do work in South Australia? I said, yeah. And he goes, would you want a job? Because we got a lot of customers inquiring. And I was like, oh, I'd love to, but at this stage of my life, I was at council, and I just couldn't take it on. But
that would have been wicked.
I said to him, I'm not filming anything, like I don't want to be on camera and stuff like that. But he's like, no filming, mate. But so hopefully, I'd love to listen to that podcast if you get him on there. He's
hopefully
an interesting dude. So
yeah.
But yeah, I think that probably, I don't know, there's a couple of things I'd sort of touched on. I'd probably touched on before as well in terms of thermal performance and energy efficiency. I think that needs a serious upgrade. I don't understand why we keep prolonging it in South Australia. Even 6-7 stars is just not really an energy efficient home. And I think that's, we really like the thermal performance in our homes, and companies like yourself keep advocating and keep educating people. I think more and more we'll see focus on energy efficiency moving forward, hopefully. Obviously being in my own home, just shy of 12 months, I'm pretty frustrated and pretty disappointed with how poor this house, how poor the performance is in this house, to be honest. So, but actually, it's funny. Last night I went to. Have you heard of Shine Hub, the solar? Maybe City of Mitcham. So in Adelaide, City of Mitcham collaborated with this company called Shine Hub, and they essentially offer solar and battery packages, and they utilize the virtual power plant technology. So I don't know if you heard of that, VPP. Essentially, what they do is, you get your solar, your battery connected up to your house, and they can draw power out of your battery and distribute it around your community. So essentially, you become your own renewable energy source. So when you're producing too much, or you've got, a full battery, they can draw out a certain percent. You get rebated back on that. So instead of your retailer rebating, like, 10 cents a kilowatt, bugger all, you get a bit over $1 back per kilowatt that you generate. So it's pretty significant. Yeah, and obviously, in terms of energy efficiency wise, helps your house out too. So we went to a thing last night, info session at the town hall, and now I've signed up to a full 8.8 kilowatt system with a battery and inverter and stuff. So
that should take the sting out of your electricity bills.
I hope so. Look, the house is, I can't argue with the quality of it and stuff like that, but performance wise, it's just lacks that. It just needs that little bit more attention. And I hope that companies like Climate Sure and that do get involved a lot more in terms of the thermal performance of their homes and in energy efficiency space, because it just needs more education in it.
Yeah. Well, invite your builder when I come down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Bring him up
definitely.
And say, come along. We've got some stuff to talk about.
We need to have a chat, buddy, because I need to talk about the wrap on our house.
That's all right. All right. Well, I think we're coming to the end of our chat now, Jake, but I do have one final question for you that I ask everybody that comes on the podcast. And that is, if there was one thing you want the listener to know out of everything in your career that you have learned, good, bad, or otherwise, what would that be?
Is it personal, professional, or is it more like because I could dribble on for all sorts, to be honest.
You know what? It can be anything. I've had all sorts. Generally, people go for professional advice, but if you've got something really important that you have learned in your personal life that you'd like the listener to know, then that can be included too.
I think just given the fact that I have probably had a lot of, personal issues occur, and sort of how the universe has sort of manifested me into my position where I am now. I think if I wanted people to know one thing, it's just that life's pretty unpredictable. and that's all right though. It's okay. You don't have to have it all figured out. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. It's okay to ask dumb questions, not to be perfect. What matters is that you show up, grit your teeth, and keep pushing towards the things that genuinely fuel you. After going through my sort of health scares, my whole perspective in life changed pretty profoundly. So, to be in positions where I'm now, to be able to, be in a position that gets to have an impact on the community, have an impact on people's lives and the future of people's lives. And to me, I'm just incredibly grateful. Stop wasting energy to things that matter and pay attention to what actually drives you and what makes you feel alive. So, yeah, things like this make me feel alive. And if I can spread my voice and dribble some shit to to a community of like-minded individuals, and by all means, I'll jump at every chance. So, just extremely grateful. So, yeah.
Well, that's what this
my
podcast is all about, dribbling shit.
dribbling shit. Passionate shit. That's the difference.
Yeah. Thank you, Jake.
But yeah,
that was
no worries.
a fantastic final tip and a great conversation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Jess. Thanks for your time too. And all the best, and look forward to seeing you in October.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jake.
All right, see ya.
That is all for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. There's a link in the episode description where you can head to a landing page, and there are some show notes there with relevant links and a full transcript of the show as well, and also links to my socials. So if you're not already, I'd love for you to follow along there too, as I share lots of building science and building biology tips. Thanks again. I'll be back in 2 weeks, so until then, happy healthy building.